Well, I'll start with a few questions, and then I think we'll go back and forth. Maybe you have some additional questions, but I'll get you started, Jim, with some questions that you've already prepared for him. The first one is, did you start out at McDonald's having a drive to climb to the top, or did you start out at the company seeing yourself in a position to simply pay the bills?
Well, it was interesting. I actually got out of the Navy after Chicago with my wife. Her father was running a police organization, and I came back to work for him to solicit funds on behalf of a magazine that they published. I hated the job. I did it for 2 days, and then I interviewed around. I was actually going to get into the electronics business and work for Westinghouse or some other company, but I really didn't want to do that because as much as I was in electronics and I worked in that field in the Navy, you have to spend a lot of time keeping up to speed on latest technology and whatever, and that ain't my gig. Again, my friend and I needed a job. McDonald's was hiring, so I went to work there. And this is the other thing I say is that, you won't find your passion. I stayed at McDonald's for 41 years because I enjoyed the work. I enjoyed the environment. It's really a people business. We have 1,700,000 employees around the world. And so the opportunity that provided, we had 1,100 stores when I started. I didn't see myself as running the place. But after a few years, I saw that McDonald's was a company of opportunity, and they didn't measure portfolios before they decided what it is you could accomplish. And so I just continued to work my way up through the ranks and went international in '92, which was a big move after 20 years with the company, and developed more than 60 of the 119 countries around the world now on my watch, and that I was president of Europe, and I did some things. But it's one of those things where I didn't aspire to run the place. I didn't necessarily, wasn't ambitious in terms of having to have the next job, but I knew that I was better qualified than the other guy or gal that was going to get it, so I had to have it. I mean, it's just, and I also believe people go, why are you going to be driven and whatever? I said, listen, if you go to work for a corporation, don't just tell people, well, I'm here just, I'm a layabout and I'm just going to keep my job and I don't care about advancing. We went from 1,100 stores, which is 35,000 today, and with that kind of growth, if you're a player at all, and you do your homework, and I also believe that it was very, very important to be value added and learn something more about your company every day and be a student of the business, and served me well.
Very good. What was your single passion that motivated you during your career at McDonald's? Did it have anything to do with your difficult childhood to drive you to where you are today?
Well, I think I'm almost over my childhood. But, I was going down the 18th hole of the Oakmont Country Club, playing in a tournament. Everybody wants me to write a book. This was about 5 or 6 years ago. I think I told Jimmy the story, Jim Riley. And the guy next to me said, oh my God, your story's, it's legendary. You should write a book. And I said, if I did write a book, it would be about kids overcoming childhood issues, right? And I just recognized by my high school after 51 years, and I told them the same thing. They said, well, what are your memories here from West High School? I said, they're bad. I said, that's why I haven't been here for the 3 or 4 years you've asked to come and honor me. And the secretary of the schools and everything was there. He said, really? I go, yes. I said, because there are any number of kids that are out there that was like I was, that need to be told there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not your fault. You can be somebody. And that was really sort of, so I told the guy, I said, so my book would be about overcoming, and there's been a lot of books written about it, but he said, really? He said, yeah. He said, He said, I don't understand what you mean. I said, well, it's about anger and people. I said, this morning, I'm 64 years old, and this might be the first morning I got up in a while where I didn't want to kick the shit out of somebody. And so he said, I think I get it. We were one up in the match, so it wasn't a big deal. So.
What was if you had one favorite part of working at McDonald's, what would it be? And do you have any fun stories about your time there?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of fun stories. I can't tell them all here tonight, but I think the thing that I liked about McDonald's was, first of all, it's a high integrity company and a high integrity business. And or as Coach K from Duke said one time, hey, anybody's got a mascot that's a clown, how could you not have fun? And it was a work hard, play hard culture. And in some cases, a little much too play hard in some people. But the truth is, the opportunity for performance and pay for performance was not measured by credentials. And I mean, I am not a college graduate. And I don't say that proudly for any other reason except to say, I attended Roosevelt, I went to night school, I did all those other kinds of things. I actually got kicked off campus once, which is a little bit of a funny story, although I was never an on-campus student, which was kind of hard to do. But I was in the Navy, and I was going to night school, and I was going to the extension course at the old Army base up there in Fort Sheridan. And I got a letter in the mail from the dean of students saying I was kicked out of school and never allowed back on campus. And I go, interesting. So I called and I said, listen, I don't know what the problem is. Well, somebody had stolen my ID somehow, was sleeping in the downtown campus and stealing food out of the vending machines. And fortunate for me, our identities didn't match up, but they had a picture of the guy. And I said, listen, you got the wrong guy here. But anyway, yeah. But a lot of fun stories. I think one of the funniest ones is when you go to all these foreign countries. And I was telling a story at dinner tonight where we went to Saudi Arabia in 1992, 3, 4, 5, 6, I forget the year now, but we were just opening that country. And interestingly enough, opened Israel and Saudi at the same time. If you all remember, talking about the Arab boycotts and companies doing business with Israel and doing business with the Arab states, there was a big conflict and controversy there. We managed to pull that off. But so my friend and I, Jim Kramer was a member of Beverly, landed. He was the franchising guy, and we were looking for new partners. And so we were sitting with the Jeddah group, all these men, it's like 9 men sitting in a circle, and it's Jim and I, and they got their dish dashes on and their headgear and everything. And they were asking what I thought about the country. Well, when we landed, Jim and I were riding to the hotel, and I looked over and I saw a woman driving a car. Women can't drive in Saudi Arabia. So I said to Jim, I go, have they relaxed the laws here? Can women drive in this country? He goes, I don't think so. I said, is that a woman driving that car? He goes, that's a woman. I go, okay. Well, we think nothing else of it until we're at now 9 o'clock at night with these guys. And I said, well, first of all, if you'd have told me I'd be sitting in a room with 9 men sitting in a semicircle, chatting at 9:30 at night without having any alcohol, I would have said, I don't think so. But I said the other thing that is interesting is, have you relaxed the laws here? Are women allowed to drive? No way. What do you mean? I said, well, we saw a woman driving a car today. So the next half an hour, all they wanted to talk about, well, where did you see her? And of course, we're like, hey, look, we're not the religious police. We're not the traffic police. We're just asking a question. So anyway, one of the stories.
Should we take a question from the audience? Everyone has one? Jeffy?
Hi. My question is, you talked a lot about role models during your speech. Over the course of your career, who has been your single biggest role model, and what is the biggest lesson you've learned from them?
Well, I had one role model in the United States Navy, which is where it all started. And after that, his name was Ernest L. Wagner, and the occasion, we were on the USS Oriskany CVA-34, ship that John McCain got shot down off of, just Small Points Department. It's the only reason I voted for him. But I lost my ID card once, and this chief was a very soft-spoken Texas guy who sat me down and sort of, let me understand my accountability and responsibility and doing whatever. And he was a mentor and a role model in other ways. I became friends with him even after I got out of the Navy, and we used to watch football together and do whatever. He's now passed away. But so that was really my first one. But I picked them. I have many from all walks of life that I don't follow everything that they do specifically, but I take the good and leave the bad. So people like Colin Powell, people like Warren Buffett. I've spent time with a lot of these with these people and had time with them, and so and I just admire their character and their leadership. And the great thing about being the CEO of McDonald's, and of course, I still have some role models of people that I follow even today, but is that you come in contact with and are associated with people that you would have never ever been associated with, because as soon as you become the chief executive officer, you're much brighter than you were previous to that, and you get credit for a lot of things that you do, and a lot of credit for things you don't do. And so it's but that's the great thing about role models. And so I also read a lot of books on talent management, leadership development, self-esteem, different kinds of things that have served me well in terms of the thing that I have the biggest passion around, which is talent management, leadership development at McDonald's, and put a very robust succession plan in, and different things that are very, very important relative to identifying high potentials and developing people. And so.
Good, thank you. Another question from scholars? Patrick?
So prior to your role of CEO at McDonald's, I know you were president and CEO overseeing corporate responsibility in Japan, Latin America, various foreign countries. What were some of the challenges that you faced in those foreign markets versus the United States when you were working in the U.S.?
Yeah, well, everything, first of all, it's the McDonald's system is the best operating system in the world, and can be exported. So if you went to Japan and you've been in McDonald's at Japan, with the exception of the fact they had smaller kitchens and different kinds of things, the execution and the operating model was basically the same. And that's because, as our partners in Jeddah said, listen, Chief, this franchise agreement is pretty one-sided. I go, right. But we have flexibility. We call it freedom within the framework, so that these countries can do their own thing and leverage the cultural relationships that they have. And not so much with menu, even though there's much more of that around menu today. And so I really didn't have a lot of trouble with it, except to say that there's always, a translation issue. No matter, there was a movie, The Translation in Japan, and I was very close to the partner there. And then you have to realize that some of these partners are billionaires in their own right, and so when they have that kind of money and horsepower, and then trying to continue to have a collaborative relationship so that you're all headed toward the same thing. And so other than that, but if you look at other countries that are more difficult in terms of, most of it revolves around supply chain and being able to get the goods and services into the market to be able to start up what you would consider to be a conventional McDonald's franchise. And that's why sometimes you go into a country, in Eastern Europe or other places where we start off slow, you won't see 100% of the menu items there that you would see in the United States. You have 10-to-1 sandwiches, but you don't have quarter pounders. Japan just started selling quarter pounders like a year and a half ago. That's really where most of the challenge is. And the translation of, most everybody, people go, well, do you speak any foreign languages? No, anybody that has money or wants money or wants to belong to McDonald's speaks English. But when you get down into the ranks in terms of the people that speak some English, you have to trust but verify in terms of what we think we're going to get done, because there's a lot of, I get it, but the reality is just like they're coming here. If they were talking to me in Japanese, I'd be going, yeah, hi, and but I don't really understand what the hell they're telling me.
What experience, knowledge, wisdom have you brought from your McDonald's career to your new role as chairman of the board for Walgreens? How is that different from being an operating person to a governance person?
Yeah, well, boards are completely different, and the reason that I think I'm chairman of the Walgreens board and was asked to do this by the board was because of their involvement now in the international markets. We just purchased 45% of the Alliance Boots drugstores, which are predominantly in London, but they're in 20-some countries, and a big distribution for beauty and pharma. And because of my understanding of the international markets, which again, I get credit for, but maybe don't know quite as much as we would all like to. And then I think the relationship with the chief executive officer in the chairman's role is really to spend time, certainly in governance with the board, but in a relationship with the chief executive officer. So Greg Wasson and I spend a good amount of time, and having been a CEO, I spent time with him while I was the CEO, because I've been on the Walgreens board since 2005, but it's also a retail business, right? So I understand a little bit about that, and so that's helpful. But board leadership is not to be confused with management. I think that's always important for chairman to remember, right? Have to be reminded. I'm not running the place. I know that, and Greg doesn't have to remind me because I know my place.
Good, thank you. This is a question, I imagine, from Mr. Riley here, by virtue of his experience as an equity manager. What did you do differently to turn McDonald's around than the two CEOs that preceded you?
Well, the two CEOs that preceded me, Jim Cantalupo and then Charlie Bell, we were a threesome and part of the team of the turnaround. The development of the plan to win happened really on Jim Cantalupo's watch, but it was created by Charlie and myself and a few others. And for those of you who don't know the story, Jim Cantalupo became the CEO and died of a heart attack. And then Charlie Bell became the CEO, and I was the number 2 guy. And Charlie contracted colon cancer, and he died subsequent to that in 2005. And so I was there and took the job, and the results were the best in the history of the company, I'm thankful to say. But much of that underpinning of all of that in terms of the plan to win. But the most important thing is we jettisoned all the other businesses we were involved in. The previous regime, we were chasing growth everywhere except in the core. As you know, we owned Pret a Manger, which is a sandwich shop. We owned Boston Market. We owned Chipotle, or a good portion of Chipotle. And when we realized that 1% same-store sales growth in McDonald's was almost $700 million on the top line and $125 million on the bottom line, that none of those other businesses combined in their best years were going to be accretive to the bottom line to that extent. And we were distracted. So I got rid of all the distractions. Also got rid of a lot of consultants. Okay? We really didn't need anybody to tell us how to run our business. We sort of knew that. And that's the interesting thing about McDonald's. In terms of when we were a small company, we didn't attract all the rocket scientists. When we started to get into the billions, they would come and say, must be complicated. No, it's not complicated. So we got back to the basics, and I wasn't smart enough really to go beyond the paradigms of what was expected from the front counter and drive-through and within the box at McDonald's, and I think that served us well.
Good. Question from the scholars?
Hey, Jim, Kirk Sells. I'm a Northwestern '08 graduate and also a St. Charles Country Club
I know.
caddy. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the support of the program. Since this is going on the internet, we'll just say that you hit the ball straight.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
What about the putting? The putting. No.
Putting, I think I probably helped certainly read a couple of those for you, Saints and Sinners. I have a two-part question for you. I think probably the question that's certainly lingering on the minds of everybody in the room, having such a prestigious speaker as yourself, high-level member of McDonald's, is how many chicken nuggets have you eaten in your entire life? And then also, I wanted to ask you as well about, I don't think it's possible for any of us to really fathom the global reach of an organization like McDonald's. And you spoke about vision, being able to have a vision. And I wanted to see if McDonald's, because of that global reach, has a vision for and an intention for abolishing world hunger, and what that might look like if it is a stated goal of the organization.
Well, it's interesting that you would ask that question. And first of all, chicken McNuggets, I haven't eaten very many of those. Not my gig. I was a plain quarter pounder fan for the longest time because I'm from Iowa, and beef in the bun, that's all I wanted. And I've since sort of like the grilled chicken snack wrap with no sauce and whatever. I still go to McDonald's almost every morning. This is how my wife and I decompress. We get up in the morning and get in the car, and she's always like, do we have to go to Hinsdale again today? Okay, we'll go down to the one on Ogden or go over to Oak Brook. And but I get my coffee there. I'm the coffee guy from McDonald's. I drink coffee, and 2 cups a day, and I have my own lids. I like the previous generation lids from the new lids, and people are always like, still using those lids? I go, yep. And how many do you have left? I go, don't worry, I have plenty. And I have a source. I know where to get them. And of course, then the world hunger thing is giving back to the community is something that McDonald's does more of than anyone could possibly imagine. And Howard Buffett has a book out now called 40 Chances: How to Solve World Hunger. And 40 Chances is a book. You know, Howard Buffett is a farmer in Decatur, Illinois. He's the son of Warren, and it's 40 chances because a farmer that starts farming has like 40 seasons, right? And so 40 seasons to get it right, to get the best yield, to get those crops, and most importantly, being able to provide those foodstuffs and food to the hungry around the world. And so he travels all over the world doing this because most of the places where there's enormous hunger problems, companies like McDonald's aren't there, right? I mean, we're not in some of those places, but where we are, and in places like in the Eastern Bloc, what we've done for the agricultural processes there through our supply chain, people would be surprised. It's just something you don't think about. For them to be able to, because we buy all of our stuff local, for the most part. And so if you go to France, for example, it's not an Eastern Bloc company, but our country, 99% of the goods and services that we sell in our stores comes from French farmers. Same thing in Bulgaria or these other Eastern Bloc countries where it's available. The problem is you don't have the availability in those markets, and so this is part of what Howard Buffett's trying to get done, but certainly not in places like Russia and other. Russia's got their own set of problems. We were talking tonight about the grain issue, the grain for whatever it was. Probably can't talk about it because it's a counterintelligence thing or something. Jim Riley was telling me the story. But they had a big grain fire over there a couple of years ago. I don't know if everybody paid attention. The big fires that were outside Russia burned up all their grain supplies, and they're a major importer of grain. and they're an importer of beef, and they're an importer of a lot of things because they can't get their agricultural system organized efficiently. And so, but we do our part where we can.
We know you talked about the plan to win and how strategy is one thing, and organizing a strategy document is one thing, and then executing is another. How big was the plan to win just from a document standpoint? How many parts did it have, and how did you knock off the blocking and tackling to execute on it?
Yeah, well, the plan to win really was when we went through our turnaround in 2003 is the start of this, and this is where somebody alluded to the stock was $12.13 or something like that. And Jim Cantalupo just came in and took over, and we had some financial targets, and we had some return on invested capital, incremental invested capital in the high teens, because we'd recently spent $5 billion in new store growth and had no incremental income. And so that's a bad formula. So we got smaller. We were targeted on being better, not just bigger. And the operating plan, though, for which is really the plan to win, not a profound title. A.G. Lafley just wrote a book called Playing to Win. I'm like, oh, there you go.
It's infringement.
And Walgreens actually has a plan to win, which I was in the board meeting in 2006 when the marketing people brought that out. I go, you people have no pride whatsoever. I mean, anyway, so the plan to win is not profound, but what I tell the analysts whenever we talk about the plan to win is that it's profound in the fact that it's 5 P's: people, product, place, price, and promotion. Every aspect of what we do in the business, and that interaction with the customer, front counter and drive-through. So all of those things. If you just imagine the number of initiatives that you can have under the people P is almost infinite in a company with 1,700,000 employees in terms of execution and product. We would call it food, but then it wouldn't be a P. So it's a development around food, but the overall mission or vision was to be our customer's favorite place and way to eat and drink. We added drink whenever we challenged the Coca-Cola company and some other companies to be our first choice for our customers in terms of the brands that they were selling. And if they weren't number one, then we had to go someplace else because we wanted to give the customers what they wanted. And so it's not a large document, but it rallied the organization. As I said, we divested ourselves of these distractions because we had franchisees going, yeah, you know what, I think I'll run a Chipotle and a couple McDonald's and I'll have a Boston Market. We're going, no. You got to pick a ditch and dig it. You got to stay focused. And so we and the best use of talent and execution was in the McDonald's business, the core business. And so all of those things united the organization. And franchise organizations, and particularly McDonald's, where we collaborate on everything, do not perform well in a vacuum of leadership. And so the plan to win was designed specifically to say, here's the roadmap for what it is we're going to do. And it was underpinned by our values. It's not a large document, but it's important that it stay in the forefront of what people do every day. I'm reminded of a time when he just hangs in the hallway in Oak Brook. And this whole team came to me and said, okay, we're going to change the plan to win. I go, no, we're not going to change the plan to win. We want to just do some wordsmithing, and we just want to refresh it. And I said, well, it's not going to be plan to win 1.2. No, we're not going to do that, but we're going to refresh it. So I said, okay, well, I just want to see the final document before you do it. So they did all this. They bring me the final document, and they said, well, okay, now we're going to change the one that's hanging in the hallway. So I can walk out there one day, and the guy takes the thing down the hallway. And I said, how long is this going to be down? And the guy looked at me like I was an idiot. I said, well, because the first thing that'll happen is somebody will walk by here and go, the plan to win's down. We're off the plan to win now. McDonald's, McDonald's was a company that at the first sign of success, we changed strategies. And so it's the one thing that I will say that I'm proudest of. It's still our platform for growth and execution is that didn't change my entire tenure of not almost 8 years or whatever.
Great. We've got around 3 minutes, so there's a time for another question or two. Blake?
So you mentioned about how our generation will go through many jobs at many different companies before the age of 40. I guess what advice would you have for us entering that environment, and especially how it's much different from one where you were able to stay at the same firm for your entire career?
Well, I think first of all, if you're fortunate enough to have choices, right, that'll be a good thing. In my particular case, I needed a job. They were hiring. I didn't have a lot of choices. I once had I was traveling all over the world, and our general counsel, this guy named Shelby Yasro, great guy, said to me, "Why do you do it?" I said, "I'm not a lawyer. I can't go and phone my scores in, and I don't. This is all I got. I'm an operating guy. I gotta go to the markets." But I think if you have choices, you'll be fortunate. And the way you have choices is learn everything you possibly can about anything and everything. And education and knowledge is power. It's power in the job market. It's power in politics. It's power wherever. And it's the one thing that I look back on. I mean, I learned through hard knocks and different kinds of things, and I was always a student of management and different kinds of things. But there's nothing to replace the underpinning of a fundamental education that's organized in a certain way, which you should be doing the choosing about how that's organized and what studies you're pursuing, right? And the only thing I say about the passion and what people find their own way is not everybody can decide what it is they like and what they want to do. They don't know that until they see it. And to that I only say, don't chase the money. Service first, the money will come. If you execute well and you add value, you will be sought out and people will recruit you. And believe me, it's better to have money than not to have money, but it ain't the only thing, right?
Sometimes they say, don't
And
worry
work
about
hard. Just be willing. I mean, people go, well, I need a job, but I really don't want to work there. You go, take a job. You can always quit. If you need a job, take a job, work a while, see what's happening, learn something, right? But work.
Yeah. One more question. Luke?
Given the growing emphasis, both in the classroom and in the real world, on teamwork and collaboration, and having worked for one of the largest companies in the world, can you speak to some experiences you had where maybe you were dealing with a frustrating situation managing people, and what skills you've identified and lessons you've learned from people who successfully manage people, such as yourself?
Yeah, well, I think that's a very good question because I wouldn't say that collaboration and teamwork are overrated, but they're absolutely necessary for the achievement of a goal, particularly when you're involved in large groups or a large company. And so command and control leadership doesn't work in those environments. And so collaboration to me was, first of all, I never went into a collaborative process. First of all, I didn't enjoy them. I don't like role playing. I don't like teamwork. I don't like, I like teamwork from the teams. I just don't want to be part of it. And I don't mean that in a negative way, just to say that, kumbaya and all that, but somebody somewhere has to have an understanding of what the outcome of the collaboration needs to be. And if you're not the CEO, or you're not the team leader, or you're not the person who does know what that is, then you're likely going to be on a team that's trying to pursue it and find out what that is, and somebody else is guiding that work. Because I always felt like I didn't really ever want to go into a meeting or a situation where I didn't know what the outcome was going to be and try to manage that the best I could. But it doesn't happen through command and control. It happens through influence. And like I have adages around diversity of thought, diversity of the population, surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you are, so that your team leaders probably knew that answer. And but with an organization like McDonald's, it was imperative. The collaboration between the franchisees and the company, for example, is extraordinary. But that collaboration was always together to say, look, how can we execute the plan to win? So all the franchisees were working on the same page. And I think that so surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you are, be willing to do it, truly do it, not talk about it, not say you're doing it and still think you're the smartest person in the room. Because if you are, you're getting bad advice. If you're the only person of color in the room, you're getting bad advice. If everybody's of the same gender, you're getting bad advice. And we're very proud of that at McDonald's in terms of, what I felt was very successful, inclusive sort of collaboration and leadership of the organization and the achievement of the people in the talent management and leadership development. That you couldn't phone your score in. And even in terms of diversity, you had to be at the threshold of performance and capability before we started talking about diversity. But once we were there, and so I did talent reviews with all the functional leaderships, and I'd say, okay, where's your next woman leader coming from? When's your next African American, Hispanic, et cetera? And people would be like, well, and so it's an active responsibility. And I know that's a little different than what you're asking about teamwork and collaboration, but it's not really, because those teams and that collaboration and the best outcomes and the best results come from a mix of people that have opinions that when you lead to the whole of some of those parts, that you get the best result.
Thank you. We're going to make a presentation now, but first let's thank Mr. Skinner with a round of applause.